Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the story of Jin Hyuk, whose favorite game turned into reality, and he is using his game knowledge to get super strong as soon as possible. If you haven't watched the previous part, the link is in the description. YouTube Analytics is telling me that 98% of you watching the videos is not subscribed. Please click the subscribe button if you enjoy the videos I make. Today's like goal is 500 likes, so please hit that like button. Now, let's continue the story. Jin Hyuk and Teresa packed their bags and went straight into the ruins along the tangled road. Did they move for 5 hours like that? The two that had separated from the raid team could reach their destination. So well defended. Jin Hyuk slowly observed the formation of the monsters. It was mostly ghouls and skeletons. High-level undead was also here and there. Durahan. And a Lich that can use magic. Judging from the magic power, the circle probably wasn't too strong. Liches should never be taken lightly, though. Especially since they could cast debuff or curse spells. There was a chance of getting a fatal injury no matter how strong you were. Teresa poked Jin Hyuk in the side with her finger. There. The oath is next to it. I saw it too. In the center of the circle. There should be the Oath of Apostle Peter, Frozen Tears, and Subspace Inventory combination. Now, if the monsters could be killed for a level up, he will leave it to Teresa. Get ready. Jin Hyuk was ready to move. The dagger that was in his hand began to shine red. Okay. Teresa also raised her sword and shield. But right then, suddenly a red status window appeared in front of the two of them. The Lord of the Corrupted Corridors is gazing at you. Jin Hyuk narrowed his eyes. No doubt. There was an indirect message from the boss. Look, did you see that? The status window? Teresa asked. Yes, I see it too. But there was no concern of being attacked right away. The intelligent boss monster's indirect message was simply an expression of its feeling. There was no physical threat. But I don't think this guy ever showed interest in a player. The Lord of the Corrupted Corridors was always locked inside its room. In the event of an intruder, he would send out his minions, and any contact with outsiders was always cut off. So why did he show interest now? Nah. Interesting. What were its reason and intent? The boss monster is gazing at us. What does this mean? In a good way, the enemy is interested. And in a bad way, it will not let us go alive. Well, we can interpret it like that. Does it acknowledge us? It means it acknowledged me. Not you. How dare you try to sneak the attention away? Looking at those words, he was sure that the message was an indirect message to him. Teresa looked at him with a shocked face. She was a player who participated as a ranker as one of the famous of Europe, while he was a porter. If you asked 100 people, all of them would say that the boss was looking at Teresa. Yet, where did this man's confidence come from? At this point, he seemed overly respectable in many ways. She had a lot to say, but Teresa just shook her head. When you first talked to me, you said you knew all the traps, right? Yes. It has been a while, but my body remembers it. The first floor was easy, but it had been more than 6 months since he last entered these ruins. No problem, though. It wasn't for nothing that people said that while form can be lost, experience was eternal. Then, what do we do? Please attract the attention of the undead monsters. I will take care of the rest. By dividing the roles, he could get all the items without leveling up. Jin Hyuk held the dagger in reverse and took a stance to descend down into the pit. Ready. Then let's start. Teresa wielded her magic. Right. Teresa activates LV5 Song of Battle. Warm energy rose from her body. All stats increased by +3 for 10 minutes. It was a wide area buff skill, something quite deceptive since it would increase all their stats. Ah, this is quite usable. Jin Hyuk let out a small whistle. If it wasn't for Teresa's unique skill, Blessing of the Star, which allowed for revival upon death, he would have gone for this skill. In the meantime, Teresa leaped into the middle of the undead monsters. The ghouls and skeletons immediately reacted with their foul breath and axe attacks. But those weapons wouldn't even scratch Teresa's armor. That was to be expected. 100 players. Among them, Teresa was the most stable ranker. Moreover, although it was a replica version, she was also equipped with the armor of Joan of Arc. No matter how many common mobs there were, they wouldn't be able to reach her. Her shield also did work. The ghouls' heads were crushed in one blow. The shield was as strong as a hammer weapon. Whenever the sword flew in an arc, skeletons would be cut into pieces, fast and accurate. The wall was being torn down, and the path opened. Now was the time. Jin Hyuk landed on the ground lightly and moved quickly at the same time. While maintaining speed, he moved between the monsters with minimal adjustments. Most of the aggro was attracted to Teresa, but a few came for Jin Hyuk too, because there were so many. Ghouls raised their nails and aimed for his neck. There was no end to them. By aiming their joints, the center of the monster's gravity shifted. The ghoul's body shook violently, and it somehow managed to look surprised. All of a sudden, its body stopped listening to it. Jin Hyuk treated skeletons and ghouls in the same manner. And at that moment, the fog became thicker. Black spears began to move like lightning. This was bad. Jin Hyuk instinctively knew this and changed his direction. A huge crater was formed in the spot where he had just been. As expected, it was a destructive force that would kill him. If it wasn't of that level, no one would want the relic. Jin Hyuk's eyes moved quickly. Left. Exactly between the rocks. He spotted the Lich preparing the spell. A mage made of white bones with no trace of flesh. However, the blue glow in its eyes indicated that it was ready to fight. This is no place for human beings to come. It was a voice that sounded like screeching iron. But those words. So was it saying this was an excellent place for a corpse to come? Jin Hyuk heard the threat, which was stained with territorial pride. There are 5 Duellahans as escorts to it. He wanted to avoid a head-on fight if possible, but he would have to deal with all of them. Like the ghoul and skeletons, there was the risk of being caught if he was ignored. Go back. Take one more step, and I will turn you to ashes. The Lich created black lightning in the palm of its hand. It was at least 5th circle magic. Jin Hyuk took a step forward. Oh my, it was a mistake. You... The Lich looked at the Duellahans and nodded. Despite their low intelligence, they were able to move effectively. At the same time, the lighting in Lich's hand vanished. Die in regret, human. It was fast. However, the moment that it was about to reach Jin Hyuk's heart, a fierce and strong fire erupted. The lighting was blocked by a fire curtain and was shattered. What are you, human? An all-out attack, yet the human blocked it like it was nothing? As far as magic went, he was confident that a human could not defeat it. That pride was shattered now. And from this moment, the flame broke into thousands of fragments and scattered. I am running out of time, so I will end this as soon as possible. Jin Hyuk spoke briefly and aimed at the Duergahan who was at the forefront. He then stepped on its thigh, and then the shoulder and jumped high in the air. Did he soar close to 5 meters above the ground? Jin Hyuk shrugged his shoulders. I am not as fast as lightning, but one could not predict. Your shield cannot stop it. A dagger that has been strengthened 10 times over, combined with his rift and adaptive stats. Just 5th circle magic was too weak to counter it. Maybe if the shield was at least 2 circles higher, then it would be possible. The dagger in his hand vanished. A red flash. A single ray of light flew in a straight line towards the Lich. 5th circle energy shield has been activated. A magic barrier rose up. The shield unfolded up like a transparent curtain around the Lich's body. But it shattered like a glass wall and naturally left the Lich injured. The Lich looked from its wound to Jin Hyuk in disbelief. That lasted only for a short moment. The blue light in its eyes was gradually losing color. All of the magic he had accumulated was blown away. Of course, as long as there was the life force vessel, it won't vanish. But it wouldn't be able to move for a while. This is roughly the end of it. Jin Hyuk took the dagger and with a single slash cut the skeleton's head in half. I finally found you, a voice said from behind him. There's only one person who can recognize the monster's behavior. I was sure you would definitely come here. The mysterious guy pointed the sword toward Jin Hyuk. Who are you? Jin Hyuk shouted with an annoyed facial expression. The mysterious guys seemed annoyed and angry by Jin Hyuk's question. It was a sword he knew. A replica version of that was displayed at the National Museum of Korea. An iron sword with the Qianlong symbol engraved on it. Right, then it must mean that this was the guy who stalked him in-game ages ago. He evaluated his opponent. The man made a sharp impression with his solid body and tall frame. He was probably over 185 cm. the impression of a well-forged sword. I didn't know much in the game as he was just a psychopath stalker, but he looks quite fine in real life. No, to be precise, even a model would be ashamed to be next to him. It was hard to find such a perfectly sculpted body and face. Aren't you tired of it? Jin Hyuk clicked his tongue. Was it not enough to chase after him in the game? Now he gets chased in ruins in real life too. Seriously, this guy would probably follow him into hell. That annoyed look. You won't be looking at me like that anymore. The man spat out the words through his teeth as terrible killing intent surged. Ah, right. This guy hated being ignored by other people. From the standpoint of the opponent, this wasn't a pleasant attitude. No, let's think about it with common sense. What kind of crazy bastard comes chasing all the way here? And if you want to fight, you should be nicely asking for acknowledgement. It will be different this time. As long as we are made to start again, I will not be pushed around by you. It made no sense. It never worked between them. With a small sigh, Jin Hyuk activated the Eye of Truth. Skill activation cancelled due to the level difference. Of course, there was a level difference, but it didn't matter. This was because there were additional stats that could override it. The stats effect has neutralized the level difference. Looking at the target status window, name, Chun Yong, gender, male, age, 28, level, 29, strength, 35, agility, 31, stamina, 18, magic, 10. Stat points, Jotsiro, occupation, swordsman. Unique ability, Song of the Sword. Skill, LV6, Sword Spirit Chi, LV5 Eye of the Ancient One, LV5 One-Hit Combat, LV5 Self-Defense Chi, LV5 Battlefield Selection, LV4 Chasing Sword Dance. Copy conditions. Chun Yong believes that he is stronger than anyone when it comes to swords. Hit him with the sword he is the most confident of. A much longer stat window than any he had seen until now. Did he recognize Jin Hyuk through the Eye of the Ancient One? If this guy had stalked him to the point where he was looking through him, he could understand the tenacity of following him until here. Chun Yong. Such a nice name. Tower of Trials. The veterans there. Chun Yong was one of the players with whom Jin Hyuk had a terrible relationship, but he was also amazingly skilled. In fact, the people who fought with Chun Yong would always be in awe of the man, and he was feared as the sword spirit. But was he of this level? Jin Hyuk read the status window with a sad expression. Level, skill, unique abilities, stats. Others would have lost their minds at seeing such a large window. Of course, he also admitted that the man was much stronger than he was in the past. The build to become a swordsman was flawless. But it is the same with me. The gap hadn't narrowed even in the slightest. Instead, it had increased. If you want to fight, I will not stop you, but will you be okay? I am not the only one here, though. Teresa, who responded to Chun Yong's energy, was approaching at a fast pace. At most, she would arrive in 2 or 3 minutes. After that, it would become a 2-on-1 fight. Saint, you brought useless companions. Well, I think I need to make 2 corrections there. First, she's not a companion. Their interests were just aligned, so they were together for now. And second, I never take useless ones along. As soon as Jin Hyuk finished speaking, he heard the sound of the wind moving. Wung, a silver shield appeared, the energy that gently pulsated on its surface. A weapon with divine power. Chun Yong held his sword out in a hurry. I will not allow another to intervene in our confrontation. Chun Yong activated LV5 Battlefield Selection. A transparent veil began to spread around Chun Yong's body. In line with that, Jin Hyuk smiled. As expected, he responded back to the most gentle scratch, a unique barrier that allowed one to choose the battlefield he wanted, the strongest type of barrier among the barriers possessed by Chun Yong. A new space of about 50 members was newly created, and what caught his eye was the image of a training center with smashed marble floors. Such a manly place. It's incredible how consistent his character was, and his talent. Chun Yong held the sword with both hands. You can no longer get help from outside. A barrier that cut off the world. Chun Yong immediately used his skills. Chun Yong activates LV5 One-Hit Combat. All stats of Chun Yong are increased by 10%. The effect of Teresa's Song of Battle will disappear. All stats are reduced by 10%. Status messages appeared one after another. It was the result of being forced to come in here through battlefield selection. And with that, Chun Yong had the confidence to fight. But Jin Hyuk wasn't going to avoid fighting. Caught you. This unfavorable situation was correct. A special condition that was attached to fusion. If the situation turns overwhelmingly more unfavorable than the original copying condition, the copying conditions will be modified accordingly. And in this case, copy conditions have been adjusted. Achievement of pre-copying and post-conditions is acceptable. The conditions had changed. He can now first copy the ability before fulfilling the condition. I will copy the unique ability of Chun Yong. Copying the unique ability, Song of the Sword, S. Song of the Sword. Increases your understanding of swords by 200%. The body naturally seeks efficient sword movement, and the senses of the whole body become extremely sensitive. This is one of the essential abilities to receive the title of True Sword. Until now, it was a fight that relied on experience and reflexes. From the moment he acquired this ability, he could understand the sword. Jin Hyuk grabbed his dagger with his right hand and flicked his left index finger at Chun Yong. "Don't pretend to be all right," Chun Yong grunted. At the same time, he kicked the ground and rushed towards Jin Hyuk. The distance was narrowed in an instant. He was fast. However, Jin Hyuk dodged the attack aimed at him and looked at the next one that followed. Several slashes came from Chun Yong's sword in less than a second, desperate to reach his vital points. At that time, Chun Yong's face distorted more than before. "What tricks are you playing?" What? Do not pretend to not know. Your main specialty isn't melee range but medium range. Why are you fighting with a single dagger?" Because of his stalking, this guy already knew Jin Hyuk's fighting style. He knew he enjoyed fighting at a distance rather than close range. He was right. For now, I think this will work. He couldn't use anything else for now due to the copying conditions. Additionally, since he was already able to use the Song of Swords, the dagger was ideal for dealing damage. Of course, that was something only Jin Hyuk could understand. From Chun Yong's point of view, this only angered him. "I will kill you." Enraged, Chun Yong swung his sword. Chun Yong activates the soul-chasing sword. Blue magic flowed from the sword. It was the manifestation of the ultimate intention of cutting down everything in front of him. Shit. Aren't you too much? Are you saying you want to use that against a beginner who just started learning about swords? From the moment you called yourself a beginner, I knew I shouldn't listen to the bullshit you say. Chun Yong dismissed the words of Jin Hyuk. As he released his sword chi, Chun Yong rushed to Jin Hyuk, who was looking down at his dagger. "Will it be okay if I fight with this weapon?" No matter how hard the strengthened dagger was, it could not withstand sword chi. It wasn't called sword chi for nothing, after all. Then, he would make it capable of dealing with it. No. The ability to transcend the swordsmanship. Jin Hyuk grabbed a black pill that was on the rock with the other treasures. "I will fuse the Song of the Sword and Demon Soul Pill." As soon as his words finished, a dazzling light shone. Fusion successful. You have acquired the unique ability of Swordgrave, SS. Swordgrave. Increases understanding of the swords by 500%. The body searches for the optimal sword path, and the perception of the sensations around the body will reach their highest level. It is one of the essential talents to receive the title of Sword Demon. Copied ability is stored in memories of the world. If possible, he wanted to do this after absorbing the frozen tears, but the opponent would get too worked up at it, so he decided to put up a good fight right now. Unique ability Swordgrave will appear. The name of the one who saw the end of the sword's path was the True Sword. On the other hand, the one who broke it all down was called the Sword Demon, the strongest and worst of talents. So no one remembered such a name. All that was left was a single sword stuck in a nameless graveyard. This is the story of the demon's head. An unimaginably horrific aura began to rise, and the marble floor below began to rise into the air. And at that moment, LV1 Night of the Black Moon is activated. Heavy pressure could be felt all over his body. Every blood vessel in him seemed to be screaming. Jin Hyuk frowned. as expected. Is this the aftermath of using a SS rank unique ability? Until now, except for the element of fire, he had never used a combat type ability, so he didn't realize it. But now he could feel it clearly. The importance of how much magic he had. If he wanted to use Teresa's unique ability later, no matter how much magic he had, it would fall short. Another reason to fully absorb the frozen tears. What absurd power is... Dozens of times. No, it was hundreds. How the hell is this happening? As time passed, Chun Yong became unable to understand the situation. The battlefield was optimized for him. Besides, wasn't the opponent giving up on his usual combat style and playing close range? It was all favorable to him. He thought he would win. But the balance didn't break, and there was only one reason why this could have happened. He's using swordsmanship? It wasn't just an imitation, but sophistication that came with long years of training. In addition, there was an unprecedented level of anomaly that pierced through his gaps. He was shocked as they kept arriving. Chun Yong widened the distance and took a deep breath. It was because he had activated a lot of skills in a short span of time. I don't know what you did, but it is amazing. Without me realizing, you learned swordsmanship. I have been on a grind and learning new things lately, and it is more fun than I thought. Though he only received it a moment ago, and it was something he learned from Chun Yong. If he said that, the guy would go insane. At Jin Hyuk's words, Chun Yong was shocked. Right. Even if you had lost your organs, relying on my swordsmanship to fight you is the wrong move. It is my mistake for being too relaxed against a monster like you. He admitted it. The fact that he can never win unless he does his best. In an instant, the feeling of air changed like a sword that stretched out in a straight line. There. The black moon fell upon Jin Hyuk's dagger. The jet-black crescent moon dyed even the light within the barrier black. Chun Yong, who was running to attack, became stiff. This was dangerous. Chun Yong began biting his lip, and blood began to flow out, but he couldn't feel the pain. Never. I cannot accept this. He tried so hard, even in the game. Even outside the game. However, no matter how hard he trained or suffered, he couldn't defeat the guy in front of him. The result was always the black and white screen with the red letter saying, "You have died," that told him all of his efforts were in vain. And 1 year, 2 years. So much time had passed that he couldn't even count how many times he read the message about him dying. He had spent years forgetting and giving it all up, and right when he had, the Tower of Trials became real life. It was this. If only he could start back up from scratch. There would never be any reason to be pushed around by this man. Their gap was simply because they had started the game earlier and dominated with their excellent performance. But even after completing all the preparations and being sure of himself, why? Did he only see despair? Chun Yong roared loudly. Soul-chasing sword dance! His sword split itself into dozens of pieces. First form. Blue-colored magic began to flow from him. Soul-chasing beast sword. Never. He will never admit this. I will not admit this! Chun Yong shouted and swung his sword. Like the claws of a beast, those dozens of swords went towards Jin Hyuk. The ground was being cut up like it was paper. Such was the attack's overwhelming power. The absurd physical force was accompanied by wind. Thick layers of dust began to rise up where the wind was swirling. Ha! Ha! Chun Yong let out a raspy breath, his heart pounding hard. He had made full use of what he could, so it should have worked this time. But what kind of skill brings up so much dust? In the thick dust. Step. Jin Hyuk appeared without a single wound. The attack wasn't blocked, nor accepted, just avoided. With that, you read all the movements? Those dozens of attacks? It was absurd. Even he who wielded the sword all the time couldn't do it. Chun Yong drew his sword horizontally, at the same time, from above to below. Jin Hyuk lowered his dagger. Swords with different paths collided together, the clash of ki and energy. Blue sparks scattered in every direction, but the balance and power didn't last long. The fully manifested Black Moon Knight swallowed Chun Yong's strength in an instant. Chun Yong groaned. Although he had poured his magic to the point of being drained, he was still fine. It wasn't a difference in magic, skill, or unique ability. This was the difference between how the two enjoyed and liked this world. Finally, Chun Yong knelt down to one knee. The subsequent blow knocked out the iron sword in his hand. The sword rotated in the air before becoming stuck in the ground. Finally, the victory was decided. I think I've won quite too many times. I don't know exactly, even how many times. The number was long forgotten. It must have been over double digits, too. 138. That many times? Next time, it will be 139. Of course, that is if you think you will have another chance at winning. At Jin Hyuk's words, Chun Yong raised his eyes. Next? Right. Next time. If possible, I want to come back stronger than now. There was a 90-day cooldown before he could copy another ability from the same target. And if Chun Yong that Jin Hyuk knew still had the same character, the next time he came, he would come with more useful abilities than now. In fact, it is possible to make it into a business trip buffet deal. Why bother looking around for abilities to copy when there was someone who would become stronger every time they fought? He could slowly devour this guy. Later on the 15th floor, I will get that skill. Jin Hyuk couldn't hide his smile when he thought about copying the skill only a swordsman could get. Jin Hyuk reached out to Chun Yong. At the same time, he activated another skill. LV2 Communion is activated. The target's hostility towards you has been lessened. The affinity has slightly increased. Chun Yong stood up, holding Jin Hyuk's hand, and wiped the dust off his body. You aren't wrong. But keep in mind, next time the results will be completely different from now. Well, it won't be boring. Right, I am looking forward to it. Jin Hyuk smiled. Chun Yong, who was trying to break the barrier, stopped. But I still don't know your name. We won't be seeing each other too often, so there is no need to use our real names, right? Hey, you. That one guy was good enough. Why use personal names? Right, I get it. Then let me call you how I know of you. Huh? Why did something feel like it was going wrong? No. Wait! Don't call me that, Jin Hyuk exclaimed. He will tell you, so don't. Don't say it, you bastard. Poop fart. Ah, I said to not call me that. Jin Hyuk touched his forehead. He again realized how much a ripple that username he had made for fun was still causing in his life. Reality was so harsh. Just as Jin Hyuk finished his battle with Chun Yong and was in the process of acquiring the items, another strange thing was happening within the ruins. The raid team was resting after a battle. Cheon Hua Hyung. Didn't all the monsters ahead already get taken down? A magic-type player who could use detection magic tilted his head and asked, Kwangil took a few others and swept them away an hour back. Really? Why? Nothing. It is just that the detection magic keeps beeping up. Seems to be 1 or 2. It cannot be. They were checked 3 times daily to be sure they were dealt with. Show me. Song Cheonhua approached the player. It was true. There was a red dot on the translucent screen. Ha! Kwangil, this brat. It looks like he is slacking off. Song Cheonhua scratched his head. Sometimes such things did happen. There were cases where 1 or 2 monsters were missed, such as the ghost types. But then... wait. It is moving. What do you mean moving? They aren't supposed to move on their own. They should stick to one place, right? I mean it. They are coming too fast, and towards us. At that moment, thud! Thud! Pounding steps could be heard, and the sound of such things couldn't belong to a ghost. Song Cheonhua began to panic. If this was what was happening, what if it wasn't a ghost, but something else entirely? And what if no one noticed until it broke through the outer boundary and approached them in this short time? Goosebumps rose on his back. Right now, wake everyone who is resting. All? Yes, everyone! Song Cheonhua shouted. A few moments later, a giant golem 3 meters in height appeared in front of the raid party. A massive body made of rock. However, what bothered them was the white-haired man sitting on its shoulders. Hello, humans. A sweet voice filled their ears as the man smiled at Song Cheonhua. You can talk? Damn it. It is a monster with intelligence. The golem isn't a normal golem, but an iron golem. It wouldn't get caught with our weapons. All the players mumbled. A monster with intelligence had a reputation for being difficult to deal with. Among them, human-like entities were the most avoided. "You are the master of the ruins?" Song Cheonhua asked, covering his body with his giant shield. "Haha. My name is Belus. I simply belong to the blood race who are servants of the true master of these ruins." "Blood race? If it is blood." Song Cheonhua was shocked. No. There was only one monster that could be this beautiful and human-like. Vampire. And if that was true, the one who ruled these ruins were... Gulp. Song Cheonhua gulped. A true ancestor. One of the strongest beings in the Tower of Trials. And this was its territory. We have no chance of winning. He never imagined that there would be such a powerful monster on the first floor. No matter how much Teresa was forced to fight, even if she had a secret weapon, a true ancestor was an exception. At least the level will be over 500. At this point, it was impossible to hunt it with just the unique ability of relics. Song Cheonhua struggled to speak. "What do you want from us? You wouldn't have come here for no reason, would you?" "Well, you are a pretty smart human, right? The reason I came all the way here is to make a suggestion. I will give you a choice. You can choose one of the two. First, would all of you like to follow me quietly? If not..." Red magic began to form on Baelus's palm. "Would you like to be led like cattle after half of you are killed as an example?" It is funny. Even if the true ancestor had come here personally, I wouldn't have thought about it. But you're saying this as just one of the blood races? Song Cheonhua growled towards Baelus. The damage would be quite significant. But if the situation was like this, it would be the same as giving up on the raid. This meant that there was no fight with the true ancestor. But this one had thought foolishly to ask them to go inside the enemy's base. From Song Cheonhua's point of view, it wasn't too early. Do you really think so? Are you saying that I am not good enough? Of course. At most, the monster will be level 50. I have hunted those several times already. A true ancestor's normal level would be over 500. However, members of the blood race that followed it would have to be lower than that. 50 or maybe 60 at most. It was true that they were strong, but it was possible to hunt them down with perfect positioning. This is definitely information officially released on the bulletin board of Tower of Trials management in the past. Song Cheon took a confident pose. Haha, as expected. I didn't know humans are so bound by the level frame. Baelus let out a smirk, and at that moment, thousands of blood drops, each the size of a child's fist, engulfed the tankers instantly. Tremendous pressure shattered the armor around a tank. There was no need to even imagine what happened to the person inside. A fountain of blood gushed out. "You bastards! Do you think I would stand still and wait for you to heal? Move now!" Song Cheonhua ordered an attack. "Shit! Run! You have to kill it before the next magic gets activated." The close-range damage dealers quickly swarmed forward. The bodies of the damage dealers surrounding Baelus were swallowed by the fistfuls of blood. Crushed pieces of meat fell to the ground. Their attacks didn't work. On the other hand, the opponent's attack was powerful enough to overwhelm them. "I get it. We will follow." Song Cheonhua nodded. A moment ago, a personal invitation had come along with a personal quest. The master of the corridor invites you. If you want to save the players and porters of the raid, please come to the innermost room. Difficulty: none. Reward: meeting with the master of the corridor. Description: if you accept the quest, all the monsters and traps in the last room will be halted. What do we do? Teresa glanced at Jin Hyuk. She was bound by contract, so she had to go and help them. Meanwhile, Jin Hyuk was just a normal porter. She couldn't just wait here. But he could just escape when the rescue teams came later and broke through the Guardian. Jin Hyuk shrugged. Well, what should be done? I don't want to take the risk, but I can go with you if you ask earnestly. Ask earnestly? Well, you just need to think about something. Actually, I heard that the subscriber base is quite strong there. Jin Hyuk then rounded his fingers. Aren't you also aiming to go for the boss? Chun Yong, who heard this, clicked his tongue. Ah, yes. That is that. And this is this. I am not trying to force her or anything. She has her own options, right? Besides, aren't you supposed to leave the ruins? Yes. The purpose of coming here has failed. Then go quietly. Don't go around spoiling my deals. Jin Hyuk waved his hand. Then Chun Yong made an even more pathetic expression. Sometimes I feel it. I wonder if I can become strong by acting vicious like you. This brat. Phew, enough. Don't talk anymore. Talking with him was the worst, and he wasn't wrong either. Jin Hyuk sighed and looked at Teresa. So, what will you do? If I give you coins, will you rescue the raid team with me? I cannot promise much. Jin Hyuk smiled casually. A smile as if he knew what the outcome would be. Teresa pursed her lips. That was a statement closer to arrogance than confidence. I will be heading out now. I think breaking through the Guardian will take quite some time. Chun Yong turned around with his sword sheathed. Ah, one thing. He paused for a moment as if he was trying to remember and said, If you are having a hard time deciding, listen to this. He looked back at Jin Hyuk with a displeased expression. I do not know if he can defeat the true ancestor. Since he was a third party here, he wasn't sure of a guaranteed win. But because he had already fought with Jin Hyuk too many times, he knew his opponent much better than anyone. He knew one thing. If that guy cannot defeat that monster, no one can. That was the man's past. The player who would become the future swordsman had recognized him. Who was the best player in the tower right now? This idiot. And if he could be commissioned for only 10,000 coins, it was like making a losing business flourish. Of course, the decision is yours. Chun Yong mumbled and moved. Thanks for the advice. Teresa nodded her head. And, as if determined, she moved slightly towards Jin Hyuk. I will make the contract. Please fight alongside me. You have accepted the quest, 2 people. Monsters are sleeping. The traps will stop working. Please hit the like button so more people can enjoy this awesome story and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now let's get back to the story. Various traps and monsters in the ruins all went silent. Thanks to this, their path ahead would be smooth. And because it was a free pass, several weeks of work were turned into a few hours' walk. Magic increased by 112. Jin Hyuk slowly absorbed the frozen tears, which Teresa had helped thaw. Frozen tears. Acquisition difficulty, SS. Absorbable magic, 100. Description. This is the essence that can be obtained from the end of the world on the 7th floor of the Tower of Trials. It greatly increases magic when absorbed, but if it doesn't go through a specific refining process, it inflicts fatal wounds on the user. So nice. 12 stat points. In terms of levels, it was the equivalent of 4 level-ups. Jin Hyuk felt a change in the magic that he was absorbing bow. When he had activated Swordgrave, it had been so painful that it felt like his body was ripping itself apart from the inside. Now the pain eased a little. That was why everyone wanted magic. The total amount is 100, so if that can be fully absorbed, he could freely use the abilities and skills of other rankers, as well as the Swordgrave and Blessing of the Star. The thawing provided by Teresa is limited to 12, so for the time being, I need to be satisfied with this. 12, 18, 30, 40. A total of 4 steps. The amount the body could absorb varied depending on the skill used to alleviate the cold. This meant he would need a person with higher level skills or a special item to grow further. Well, I can think about it at a later time. Right now, he had to focus on what was in front of him. Countless challenges and failures, and the end was nearing. No matter how he thought about it, there was only one way to defeat Elise, and it wasn't an easy path. But he would have to break through it. Not much time left. The passage began to get wider and wider. How long did they walk? Decorations that resembled ancient Greece appeared on the large door ahead of them, but it wasn't something they could enjoy. This, Jin Hyuk frowned. Tingle. Magic was behind that door. Even though the door should be reducing the amount of magic leaking out, the pressure from there was immense. He glanced to the side and noticed how stiff Teresa had become. How can we defeat such a monster on our own? Her voice trembled. Right. It was unsurprising. The magic from the door felt like it pierces their skin. It was so strong that they thought they would be trampled. There is no need to be afraid. Didn't you know that your opponent was strong before coming? Right, but... Besides, in battle, The stronger side doesn't always have to win. Strategies and tactics were created to overcome the strong. If all the winners were decided simply by the amount of magic, I never would have reached the end of the tower. Do you have a plan? Only one thing. No matter what happens, believe in me. He reached out and opened the door. A spectacular view, along with a dazzling light, unfolded in front of them. The floors and pillars inside were made of gold. At a place where a red veil fell from above sat a noble throne. You are finally here. I was too tired of waiting. The woman, who was leaning her chin on her hand, smiled. Jin Hyuk looked at her. She is amazing no matter how many times I see her. Long, silver hair reached down to her waist. Red eyes, a beautiful face, and an alluring body. Indeed, she looked like the quintessential vampire who was blessed with immortality. And she also was horrifying. There were 12 members of the Blood Clan lined up next to her. By comparison, they merely looked all right. Are the people safe? I haven't touched a single one, don't worry. Elise beckoned them lightly. Right. Love, dimensional severance is dismantled. The veil was removed and the captives appeared. Up! She had tied them down, gagged their mouths, and blindfolded them. From the raid team captain, Song Cheonhua, to the porters, most seemed unharmed. Thank God. LV2 Eye of Truth has been activated. It is the smell which comes from you that made me invite you here. Smell? Yes. The scent of blood flowing through your body. A sweet scent which cannot be compared with these ordinary humans has stimulated me. Shit. He knew his blood type was B, and now this woman was calling it sweet. Jin Hyuk touched his forehead. You don't seem happy. You want to suck me dry and turn me into a mummy. Is there anyone who would be happy with that? I am no idiot who eats all of the delicious things at once. You will be allowed to live for 60 years. So, do not be too afraid. Hearing that didn't exactly reassure him. That was, in a word, I will keep you by my side and stick my teeth into you whenever I am hungry. I appreciate the favor, but I have no intention of living as a fancy lunchbox to a vampire. Find a toy for such a sadistic hobby elsewhere. There were definitely people who were into that. I am sorry, but I never said you get to choose. I know. I don't mean to back down either. Let me give you something else instead of blood. Oh. Was it because he spoke bluntly? Elise smiled, but it was only for a short time. There is nothing more precious than delicious food to us. No matter what you suggest, my heart will not change. What if it is freedom? At Jin Hyuk's words, her face changed. At the same time, how dare you? Speak such words. I will tear you apart, human. The vampires who were on either side of her shouted at once. Their killing intent was oozing out at his words. Right, this was how it worked. To them, freedom was more than just a word. The years spent in exile and endless darkness. The beauty of the stars and the moon shining in the night sky. The soft feeling of the wind and freshness of the grass. All of them were long lost. The words you are saying, you need to take responsibility for it. If I weren't responsible, I wouldn't have said it. Jin Hyuk took a mask out of his sleeves. It was a black mask with geometric patterns on it. It was used in the labyrinth, but even though it looked the same, it was different now. The runes engraved on the mask's right cheek stood out. That... Elise narrowed her eyes. Looks like she had figured out the meaning of this mask. Jin Hyuk bowed. Now that he's thrown the bait, it was time to get to the point. I am Kang Jin Hyuk. On behalf of the demonic humans in the tower. That was the current character he was playing, and I will get you out of your prison. Even this character's personality and goals. Demonic humans, a term used for those who turn their backs on humanity because of money, revenge, or personal beliefs. The demonic humans prevented the players from climbing the tower. They held hands with the monsters in labyrinths or ruins. Just like right now. After the Tower of Trials became a reality, numerous evil deeds, such as the coin farm, were hotly discussed by various news outlets. There was a clear awareness of demonic humans. I have heard of them. But you are one of them? Elise didn't seem to believe this. Well, the mask alone wouldn't convince anyone. Then, he will give her one piece of information that only a demonic human would know. We have already reached the 27th floor of the tower with the temple. There, I learned that Miss Elise was here and that there was a way to deceive the seal placed around the ruins. They were words said without interruption. It was a bonus that there were simple things to explain. Indeed, if you know about the temple, then it is no lie. Then do you believe me? No. Elise shook her head. You know too much about us, and are also saying things which we have long considered impossible to solve. A rose with thorns. More than anything else, it is hard to believe a man who talks too much. Refusal. It would have been enough to shake hands and leave if it was a request or suggestion. But rejection was death. Elise slowly raised her hand. The vampires lined up next to her shined with power. If the order was given now, both Jin Hyuk and Teresa would be killed. Blood Spear has been activated. Alice conjured her blood spears and aimed at Jin Hyuk. Teresa jumped in front of Jin Hyuk and started defending with Sacred Reinforcement Shield. Alice started laughing after watching Teresa struggle defending against her attack. Blood Explosion has been activated. Alice raised her hand and summoned a giant ball of explosion blood. In the next moment, a knife penetrated into Teresa's chest from behind. Teresa's body shook violently. An artery was cut, and blood gushed out like a fountain. A fatal wound. Ah. Teresa groaned and finally fell. Prove it to me some more. Alice challenged Jin Hyuk. Jin Hyuk grabbed his dagger and stabbed Teresa again. Blood splattered everywhere. And she simply died just like that. Do you think this is enough proof? The vampires were clearly the most reluctant as he struck a deal with Teresa using the hostages they held. One who thought about the future could never do this. He was easing their vigilance by using communion, and also managed to move Elise's heart. Good. I will say I believe you. Elise stood up. Her long silver hair fell down her shoulders. In what way are you giving us freedom? Great. Jin Hyuk calmed his beating heart. Be calm. Do not get excited. Take it easy. The fish had just caught the bait. It needed to be pulled up slowly. I have a 7th grade item ready for you. We can deceive the ruins barrier if Miss Elise can seal her soul in the item. Seal the soul? This is my first time hearing of it. Right. Because this method only appeared on the 40th floor. To be honest, I was pretty lucky. In the process of learning the information, it wasn't easy to figure out the exact amount of magic we would have to supply. Jin Hyuk gathered magic in his fingers. A blue light shone on his fingertips. His fingers crossed the air as if he was writing letters. One word, signicuium, and another, immortalitas, sancturium. He drew a pattern made up of 6 words. As each word was infused with a different amount of magic, they began to shine blue. Strange energy was being exuded. Elise looked surprised at this. Can it be used that way? The Blood Clan members who were watching the scene asked aloud. They seemed overwhelmed by a sight they were seeing for the first time. In the meantime, Jin Hyuk held Bram's ring in the middle of the formation. The level condition, level 1, of caster Kang Jin Hyuk has been accepted. 7-star soul transfer chant has been activated. The order is completed when the target's approval is obtained. You can only take 1 soul at a time. The cooldown is 365 days. Only 1 person could leave the ruins. The next person would be able to after a year. Time wasn't a problem for vampires who received the blessing of immortality. They will be very reluctant to accept a spell they have only seen for the first time. Elise's eyes twitched. But it was for just a short time as a smile formed on her lips. A loophole to the chant. If we break down the form which is the basis of the chant, we can destroy the entire rite. No matter what tricks this man used. This means that as long as her men were here with Bayless on her side, the human could be killed, and she could break away from the seal. This was like a safety net for her. But there was a feeling of confusion, too. You cannot just throw away a chance because it sounds absurd. Such a long life spent being locked up made this temptation hard to resist. If not now, perhaps she would never get the chance to escape from here. Her worries didn't last long. I get it. I will accept it. Elise nodded her head. And at that moment, Bram's ring absorbs the soul of Elise. A dazzling light enveloped Elise's body. Jin Hyuk retrieved the ring from the 7-star circle. His heart was pounding hard. It was a success. It felt like all the hard work he did in the past was being rewarded. If even one of the things he did was incorrect, Elise wouldn't have been able to be sealed into the ring. In fact, it had failed dozens of times in the past. The variable called Teresa made it easy. Not as bad as I thought. I thought it would be stuffy, but it is strangely cozy. Elise's voice could be heard from the ring in his palm. He felt glad that she liked the inside. She was reacting as if it was a house she would live in. It was then. A thin groan escaped from Teresa, who was lying on the ground. That woman on the floor. Isn't she dead? The clan member's eyes were wide open in shock. Obviously, they had confirmed that she had stopped breathing. They had even checked for a magic reaction and felt nothing. She was clearly dead. Then why? I forgot. Even if she dies, that friend will come back to life. It was called the blessing of the star. If she died, she would come back to life. Jin Hyuk let out a relieved sigh as he looked at Teresa's revived form. Man, for real. Watching it in person reinforced that feeling. Wasn't it like looking at a dead cockroach that started moving again? You deceived me, Elise shouted. Now that she realized she was deceived, she couldn't help but become angry. On the other hand, Teresa, who came to her senses, mumbled, This was the plan. With the blessing of stars, she was able to comprehend everything which happened around her. Everything up to the monster being sealed. That was why he had asked her to believe. There are many things I want to ask, but now I have to help with this, right? We aren't in a situation to talk either. Right. Talking would be for later because this wasn't over yet. Teresa activated LV4 sign of cross. Teresa moved her sword to the left and right. The rope and blindfolds on the other people were removed. Those who had their senses blocked began to gasp as they were released. We live! We live! Wow! Cheers erupted from everywhere. They thought they were going to die, but now they were tasting freedom again. You came. Song Cheonhua bowed to Teresa. I am glad I wasn't too late. Teresa made Song Cheonhua get up. How many rescue teams came? There were bound to be around 3 or 4 groups that were deployed from the other guilds to the ruins. That much was needed to save them here, but, excluding me, just one other. The words from Teresa's mouth crushed Song Cheonhua's expectations. To act like a demonic human and save himself. Such a stupid human act. The Blood Clan members showed their teeth. They had been ordered to eliminate the humans if the man tried any tricks. There was no need to wait any further. Various blood magics began to fill the surroundings. Drops of blood gathered and formed into a giant wave. The wave increased in height as if it would swallow the place up. It was a grotesque sight to see. There were more than 11 vampires here. The difference in power didn't diminish in the slightest. Right at that moment, a large fire barrier stopped the wave. No, it wasn't just blocking, but standing tall. As the heat caused the moisture to evaporate, the drops of blood began to gradually disappear. Who was it? That mask. I've never heard of a ranker using a dagger. It must be someone he was seeing for the first time. But did that make sense? How could a player who wielded such strong fire magic be unknown? He couldn't believe it, so he had to ask. Who is that person? At Song Cheonhua's question, there was a soft smile on Teresa's lip. He is someone who has to be trusted. How can a human... Bayless mumbled in disbelief. Right. He couldn't help but express his disbelief. The attack they had used now didn't spare any magic so that it would be able to take down humans in one blow. But... how? How could a human stop it so easily? Jin Hyuk shrugged. The skills and fire we use are at odds with each other. In addition, the level difference has been reversed due to the rift stat and adaptive stats. If this kind of situation took place, they would have confidence. The moment Elise is sealed, the chances of you people winning is gone. Certainly, defeating you with magic seems tough. Bayless dispersed the magic he had gathered. But as you said, wouldn't it mean you cannot handle a melee attack? Suddenly, a black sword appeared in his right hand. It was a rapier used by vampires. Furthermore, Bayless activates LV9 Dark Furious Energy. Black energy flowed smoothly into the rapier. It was a type of sword ki, and a pure kind as well. There is nothing better than using this to deal with people who are as irritating as flies. And he wasn't wrong. For those with amazing magic abilities, the moment the fight went to a close distance, the risk increased. Moreover, the odds would be too much if they were to attack simultaneously with all 12 of them. Right. That was their plan. Under normal situations it would work, but who said that Jin Hyuk was strong only at magic? The unique ability, Swordgrave, is activated. In the quiet silence. The talent of a swordsman who dominated an era entered Jin Hyuk's body. It changed. Everything he saw and felt. His heart was beating wildly. He could sense everything, from the most minute movements to the flow of magic. The world seen through his mask looked so different now. Indeed, he didn't have the name of the sword demon for nothing. Jin Hyuk smiled. What? Belus tilted his head. Just now. He felt something had changed. It was hard to pinpoint, but the atmosphere had changed. Prr. His hands trembled slightly. No way. Was he afraid? He? Belus gritted his teeth. Don't joke with me. Afraid of a human? It cannot be. It shouldn't be. Above all else, they were the ones who would break the flesh of humans. He wouldn't waste time anymore. Belus grasped his sword. No matter how hard you try, you won't be able to do anything. An intense flame-like dark energy burned on his blade. It was a sword that was able to cut through anything. We will take him down at once. Sure, no one should miss him. We will have to cut one of his limbs off. The Blood Clan members took up formation against Jin Hyuk. Front, back, left, and right. Not a single ant could escape. However, Jin Hyuk stood still. He didn't even respond. He just glanced at the enemies with a grim expression. Sword Ki. Is that the one thing you believe in? Don't act out. No matter how much you crawl or fly, you will not get out of here. Well, anything he said might just feel like a bluff. It was a situation where anyone could see who had the advantage and disadvantage. Then, it was time to prove it with their skills, and not with words. Jin Hyuk infused magic into his dagger. Right, the light from his dagger was so bright that it made the eyes of anyone who saw it ache. This cannot... Belus's eyes grew wide at the scene in front of him. The energy he felt from that dagger was utterly different from the sword chi, which covered his blade. The blue-colored energy completely enveloped the dagger and soared a full meter above its tip. There was no doubt. This, Aura Blade? Infusing energy into a sword. Shouldn't it be tested out like this? Jin Hyuk extended his dagger. The sharpness to cut everything down. An overwhelming force was directed at the vampires. It was then that his form vanished. Ha! He is gone? Where is he? Shit! Do not let him out of your sight and use detection magic! Belus shouted, but it was too late. Belus felt a chilling energy approaching him from behind, and that was it. The last thing he remembered. The fight was finished, and it was simply a foolish waste of time. No. Calling the fight foolish was something only Jin Hyuk alone could say. Those who watched couldn't even lift a finger as the whole thing happened. Miss Teresa, Song Cheon-hwa stuttered. What did he just see now? Was this for real? To wipe out an entire clan of vampires without having a single person on their side wounded. No other ranker would be able to do this. Gulp. Song Cheon-hwa gulped. That man, do you know who he is? Teresa didn't answer. Instead, she glanced at Jin Hyuk, the mask he was wearing. It meant he didn't want to reveal his identity, right? We met by chance in the middle and moved together. He told me to believe him, and for more details. He never told me. I see. Ah. Song Cheon-hwa reluctantly nodded and sighed. It was because he saw Jin Hyuk was trying to do something while wearing the mask. Wait! Wait a minute! Song Cheon-hwa ran to Jin Hyuk. What? Jin Hyuk, who was standing in front of the relic, looked back. My name is Song Cheon-hwa, the one commanding this raid. I know a little about that. Responsible for the failed raid, you mean. An incompetent bastard who was more dangerous than the enemy. He would have crushed this incompetent bastard into a corner if it were him. With what face could he even talk to Jin Hyuk? Forget it. People like this don't even know what wrong they've committed. Take the wounded and leave the ruins. I have a lot of stamina, so I just need water and simple nutrition. Jin Hyuk waved his hand as if telling him to not bother, but Song Cheon-hwa wasn't thinking about pushing it. Before that, I have to tell you something about the relic. No. Was he trying to claim the right to the relics? Wah. This guy was more than shameless. As you may be aware, the ownership of all the items obtained in the raid belongs to Balhae Guild. Jin Hyuk cuts off his words. I saved your life, and now you want to talk about the relics? Dogs were so annoying. He could even imagine what this bastard wanted to say next. Song Cheon-hwa quickly added, Instead, we will pay another reward. Whether it is money or coins, we will make sure you aren't disappointed. Reward. That was it. He hadn't thought of it till now, but he couldn't help it now. I don't need that. Just take it. Jin Hyuk took a step back. Are you really fine with that? Sure. Instead, just don't regret it, whatever the outcome is. Jin Hyuk shrugged. Song Cheon-hwa felt uncomfortable at this, but he didn't think much of it. He had no reason to hold back when the man gave up on rewards. It was a piece of wood lying on a wide rock. The relic was Merlin's staff. It was one of the 7 broken pieces of the relic, but that didn't diminish its value. If you use it as a magic ingredient, its value is limitless. Song Cheon-hwa's eyes were stained with greed. If he took this, all the mistakes he had made in the raid could be covered up to some extent. But the moment he grabbed the piece with his hand, the piece felt hot and sent searing pain through his palm. Song Cheon-hwa was surprised and released his hand. However, what surprised him more than the burned skin on his palm was the shape of an inverted cross on the palm of his hand. What is this? It was a curse. Originally, it was a relic that could be obtained only after destroying Elise. But since this was a situation where Elise hadn't died and was instead sealed, anyone who touched the relic would naturally be cursed. Curse. No, I cannot die. Right? Me? It isn't life-threatening, but... Was it called alopecia? All the hair on your body will disappear. Simply put, it meant you had to live hairless like a pig all your life. No. Song Cheon-hwa touched his hair with trembling hands. Swish. They were falling out one by one. It seemed like only a few were left. This was why Jin Hyuk said he'd regret it. Well, it was useless now. No way! Song Cheon-hwa screamed and ran off somewhere. Perhaps he went to look for a mirror, but seeing himself now wouldn't be good for his mental health. You are so mean. Teresa smiled. Trying to get your hands on someone else's food is bad. But if this happens, shouldn't Mr. Jin Hyuk also have to give it up? No, because I know how to touch it without getting cursed. Blessing of the Star. If he could use divine power, he could endure the curse. Before answering Miss Teresa's question, maybe I ask you one thing. Sure. Do you admit that you lived thanks to me? Teresa looked into Jin Hyuk's eyes. If it wasn't for him, none of the raid team would have gotten out. Right, thank you. I lived thanks to you. Teresa nodded her head. The condition has been met. You have succeeded in copying the unique ability Blessing of the Stars. The copied skill is saved in Memories of the World. Blessing of the Stars. Acquisition difficulty, SS. Description. You can wield the divine power only the paladins can use, and you will be able to continue a second life unless you are afflicted by instant death. Cooldown, 240 hours. With this, he had accomplished every last goal he had from the ruins. Jin Hyuk confirmed his newly acquired ability with a satisfied face. Blessing of the Star. Teresa's unique ability granted her the protection of the constellation. Finally, he got it in his hands. I gained a lot from coming to the ruins. Relics such as the Frozen Tears and Bram's Ring were all useful, but nothing compared to natural powers or Teresa's unique ability. To get 2 abilities of a top ranker. He wanted to manage his facial expression, but he couldn't. Like someone who just won the lottery, the corners of his lips were twitching. Phew, calm down. Jin Hyuk took a deep breath. How many unique abilities exist in this world? Besides, fusion could replace Blessing of the Stars with a superior ability later. Another sky above the sky, until he could rise to such a high position that no ranker could even look at him. He couldn't relax for even a moment. At that time, Mr. Jin Hyuk? Teresa gently tapped his shoulder. Right. He was still with her. He had been too engrossed in his own skills that he forgot about her. Ah. Sorry, I had to check something. It was now time to leave the ruins. This is a special news feature, so make sure to grab it. Whether it is a day, a month, or a year, wait like a stone. Yeah, you bastard. Permission has been granted from above to shut it. Reporters from broadcasting stations, officials from the guilds, and porters alongside the miners. There were literally hundreds of people waiting for the arrival of a particular person. Soon, the raid on the ruins will be complete. Those were the words of a man who had said it while holding an old sword. All of this uproar was caused by that man. Chief, what the man said is true, right? Jong Jae-hyun from the Awakened Association asked his chief, Kim Tae-chun, who was next to him smoking a cigarette. Well, it is too absurd to believe. Damn, if I had heard it myself, I would have asked a few questions. But the fact was that the people who were sent to question the man got scared and walked away. The raid that went in didn't even have the proper equipment to go all the way. No. Even if they had the necessary power, it would have taken 3 weeks for them to complete it. How could they finish it in such a short amount of time? If it was that simple, the ruins wouldn't be such an infamous place. But they still couldn't pass on this news. If the people came from the ruins, it would mean that they had defeated the Guardian within it. It was an unbelievable achievement and situation. It hurts. Chief Kim scratched his head, and at that moment, a bright light began to shine from the entrance of the ruins. At the same time, a golden status window appeared in front of everyone. The ruins, the corridor of the fallen, have been conquered. An outstanding achievement will be inducted into the Hall of Fame for one day tomorrow. Chief? It was true? Chief Kim looked towards the entrance. There were people with injuries exiting one after another. The Balhae Guild was in the lead, followed by the Zion Guild. Their cameras were working here. They are coming! Oh! People raised their voices to capture the image of these heroes. Congratulations on conquering the ruins on the first floor. Can we ask how you succeeded in attacking it in such a short time? Tell us who played the MVP role in this raid. Reporters held out their mics. In order to win the interview, you must find the captain who leads the raid. At that time, you are Mr. Song Chien-hwa, one of the men asked a bald man. At first glance, he looked like him, and upon closer inspection, he was even more sure. This man was Song Cheon-hwa, the captain of the raid. But Song Cheon-hwa didn't respond to the question. He just continued to move onward. His face had an expression as if he had lost his soul. The reporters who saw this uttered softly, "Oh my." Not just his hair, but even the eyebrows and lashes are gone. What happened inside? The relic? He looks so miserable. It seems like he had a second awakening by giving up his hair. Great for the Balhae Guild, but terrible for him. Although he had lost something precious, he had completed the task that he was assigned, and it would be an excellent business for the guild. This made sense for those who didn't know the reality of what had happened. Eventually, Teresa intervened with the reporters. It wasn't Song Cheon-hwa who conquered the ruins. Well then, was it Miss Teresa? Did the Zion Guild do it? Their eyes focused on her. The surroundings went silent, so much so that only gulping sounds could be heard. No. She shook her head before pointing to a person with a mask on his face. The successful conquest of the ruins was done by this person alone. We were just spectators watching it happen. The emergence of a super newbie. The topic caused the whole nation and the Tower of Trials community to heat up. The player with the mask. Who is he? Conquered the ruins alone? Absurd. World-class guilds. A decision has been made to dispatch an investigation team on the first flight tomorrow morning. In 3 hours, the performance will be revealed at the Hall of Fame. It grabbed everyone's attention. The issue was especially important for the government and media, as they used it to divert attention from the lack of progress on the raid against the third-floor boss monster. This new topic was used to give the citizens hope. A new hero who was recognized by the top ranker Teresa, the player who reached the end of the ruins that no one else could even see. Please hit the like button so more people can enjoy this awesome story, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now let's get back to the story. Ugh, there are all kinds of modifiers attached to it. Jin Hyuk scratched his head. He expected the reaction to be hot, but this was more than he expected. At least he had a mask on, so he bought a few days of reprieve. I will get the S-class soon. That way, things will work out. 100 players. The first and second place rankings had been decided by now. All that was left now was to design a way to make everything look favorable to him. He needed to balance the different perceptions. Since Teresa had promised to be silent, he didn't think he had much to worry about. For now, this was good. And next. I will have to talk to Elise, who is inside. It would be difficult to continue to act as if he couldn't hear her. Even if it is difficult to handle, I will have to handle this eventually. A difficult journey to the 50th floor, the decision he would have to make to decide if it would be an easy or tough journey. Jin Hyuk took the ring, and then a sharp voice became audible. How dare you lock me in the dark, you stinky bag, human, do you know who I am? Look here, Miss First Ancestor, no, Grandmother of Great Britain. She didn't seem to understand the situation yet. Did she think that she was the all-powerful vampire? Jin Hyuk grabbed the ring and rotated it. He swung it round and round in a clockwise direction. Stop! I'm feeling dizzy. Stop it, please! Elise screamed and he stopped. How is it? Thinking I am crazy like you? Know this. The vampires never forget their grudges. She still didn't understand. Fine. Still, she was a strong monster. She wouldn't just give in that easily. Usually, he would play it hard as well. But now he's changed his mind. He will train her thoroughly with a whip. From one station to another, there will be a lot of dizziness, so be careful, please. Jin Hyuk gave a voluntary announcement. Stop. Seriously, don't do it. I might just puke now. There is no door to get off. And again, he started the hellish train. The prolonged torture session that lasted for 3 hours was finally finished. Finally, hic. I might die. From that. Elise sobbed softly. Her nose felt like it was broken. He had rotated her 720 degrees at all sides. Inside the right, it felt like she was trapped inside a hell-like gravity training for astronauts. Did I do it too much? This woman, who was supposed to have the authority of a clan leader, seemed like she had lost her soul. However, his compassion didn't last long. Because now this vampire was trapped inside a ring. Stop crying and come out! Jin Hyuk infused magic into Braham's ring, and Elise, who had been trapped inside, was released. Ugh! She seemed surprised at this. She was bound to be surprised at this sudden gift of freedom. Finally, it is time to take revenge. It was time to repay the humiliation. She was thinking of paying back the suffering 1,000-fold, but... But what was this? No, didn't her field of vision feel too low? Only when she raised her head up could she see the other person. Why is it like this? Elise tilted her head and scanned her body. Only then did she realize why her point of view had changed. Her slender height had shrunk all the way to only 30 centimeters. Even the potent magic she possessed had disappeared. Her red eyes shook violently. Whoa, what is this? This. Only part of the body materializes when the seal is in place. Only part? Right. Only part of the body. To be precise, should he call this the mini version of Elise? The power she could exert now was less than 1% of her true powers. Of course, even with those restrictions, she was still stronger than ordinary vampires. It wasn't enough to just defeat the opponents. She could smash them. No. Elise slumped down. She looked like she was about to cry. Considering that this was her first solemn time, it must be a shock to her. Jin Hyuk then smiled. It is slowly time to feed her. Since he's used the whip on her a lot, even a dried carrot now would taste sweeter than anything else. Jin Hyuk sat next to her. Don't cry and listen. And he began to speak. What I said in the ruins, they weren't baseless words. The promise he made in the ruins. To give freedom to her and her subordinates. I wanted freedom, but not this kind. I know. Who said this is being given to you? Jin Hyuk waved his hand. Not just physical freedom, but the true freedom you desire will be given. This... What do you mean? Elise's voice trembled. She had probably guessed what he meant, but she needed confirmation, so Jin Hyuk told her. Elise von Ataraxia, if you can help me, I will eliminate those who betrayed you and restore you to the head of the Ataraxia family. New video has been updated in the Hall of Fame. A 10-minute video and a message were uploaded to the Tower of Trials community. Considering the difficulty of the ruins, the video was too short. Well, it was only a compilation of highlights made by weaving together the separate battle scenes. However, the viewers who saw this video had no choice but to admit the video's duration was right. The raid was thought to have failed. However, the situation changed entirely as a masked player appeared and defied all the expectations. Mochi Mochi. It is my first time swearing into my hands after seeing this end-of-life video. The nobles of the night, who were able to use both magical and physical attacks, were trampled down like worms. Scenes that felt detached from reality unfolded one after another. Nothing else but admiration could be expressed for him. Because the vampires were pressured and overwhelmed. It was then. ID Center. As expected, I thought it had to be him. This is the man in the Hall of Fame with the video for the mangrove tree and the +10 weapon strengthening. While the eyes of the world were on the video, Jin Hyuk arrived in front of a high-rise building, the base of the Black Crow Guild. I heard that the guilds are sitting on money trees. Must be true. Since it was a 35-story building with a view of the Han River, what was the price they paid for it? No matter how small, the price had to be around 10 billion for a unit, right? The forest of buildings he saw through the mask was a different world from the single room that Jin Hyuk lived in. But why? He didn't feel any envy for the power he lacked when it came to money. The owner of this building will be facing the worst moment of his life now. Jin Hyuk fused magic into his legs, and then kicked the glass door open. With a roar, the 5 cm thick tempered glass shattered. What? The glass? Did a dump truck drive through? Everything inside became noisy as Jin Hyuk pulled out his dagger. I will say it only once. Bring me Shin Gunsu right now and get him on his knees, or I will be hanging out here today. This threat made it natural for the ones inside to swear at him. What nonsense is he saying now? This jerk. Do you know which guild this place belongs to and dared to come here? Of course he knew. Isn't this a place that sells charcoal grilled crow meat? They had tried to stab someone in the back. This company didn't care if a third party died to fulfill its purpose. Thanks to this, an angry customer came from far away to meet with the company's representative. I guess you have gone all crazy. Call for the guards. They have work to do now. At the penthouse on the top floor of the building, Shin Gunsu, sitting in his private office, pursed his lips at the news that kept arriving. Hyung! The raid team was taken down. All the elevators are down. He is coming up, and fast. He's already reached the 20th floor. None of the news coming to him was good news. All of them were just words that heralded the coming doom. Shin Gunsu hit his desk. Damn it! What kind of trouble is this? An intruder out of nowhere? Due to the nature of their guild, they had already made too many enemies, but this was the first time someone was attacking them like this. And all alone too. Never. I am not going to falter. At first, he thought the guy was just a psychopath who had come here wanting to die. But after seeing his security team dismantled so easily, Shin Gunsu had to admit it. This was an enemy that was more terrifying than 100 men. It was then. The screams could be heard right outside the door. Kang! Kang! The screams were followed by the sounds of swords clashing, but it was just for a second. There was no presence of energy left outside anymore. Shin Gunsu could feel his heart beating quickly. In the midst of his own fear and morbid curiosity. Kick. The door opened. Are you the guildmaster? The intruder appeared in front of him with a bizarre appearance. Jin Hyuk took a step forward. Stop. I will cut you down if you don't stop. Surung. Shin Gunsu pulled out his sword. Perhaps it was a weapon imbued with magic. It had colorful sparks flying around it. At first glance, it looked like an expensive sword. After all, this was to be expected from a guildmaster. But why? Despite the harsh warning, Jin Hyuk couldn't hide his smile. Such a clumsy move. Perhaps because he had a bout with Chun Yong not too long ago. His body had felt what it was like to be fully involved in a clash of swords. Shin Gunsu's movement felt uncoordinated and hesitant. How would he attack? His aim. All of it. As Jin Hyuk continued his steps forward, Shin Gun-soo, unable to hold back his anxiousness, shouted out, "Didn't you hear me telling you to stop?" Shin Gun-soo activates LV3 Quicksword. Shin Gun-soo's sword vanished from sight. Wung! The tip of his sword moved towards Jin Hyuk, leaving behind afterimages in its path. No. Does he actually think this will work? Jin Hyuk felt bad for the man. His hand moved in line with the sword. At this speed, there was no need to avoid it. The moving sword stopped. Huh? The sound of shock escaped from Shin Gun-soo's mouth. His blade had been caught despite its fast movement. His being shocked at this was natural. Shin Gun-soo felt goosebumps rise from all over his body. From his past as a gangster until now. He had been through countless experiences. Even if he died and woke up again tomorrow, he could not win. It didn't take long for him to realize there was no hope. You. Who are you? Who ordered you? Shin Gun-soo hesitated and took a step back. He couldn't run away in a small room. Tuk. His back hits the glass of his windows, causing his body to tremble. This was terrifying. Even the subordinates that he had trusted were no longer here. Try guessing. What? Guess who I am and for what purpose I came here. Who knows? Maybe the correct answer would come. Jin Hyuk stabbed his dagger through the middle of the desk. He then takes a seat in a soft chair near the table. Dangun, did they send you from Balhae to keep us from growing? Wrong. Wrong answer. Usually he would laugh and tell them to try again. But this Golden Bell, a quiz show in Korea by Jin Hyuk, had slightly different rules. If someone got the question wrong, there would be a penalty. And there was something good about this. Jin Hyuk picked up a ball from the side of the desk. The go pieces are thick. As expected from a rich guy, they always got the best ones. Why are you? Shin Gun-soo mumbled anxiously. Why? Snap. Ah, my forehead. My forehead. It was because of that. Shin Gun-soo rolled to the ground while covering his face with both hands. A lump was already forming on his forehead. It should be painful since Jin Hyuk had hit him with something infused with magic. Again, guess. And think before you answer this time. Jin Hyuk fiddled with another go piece this time. Black market. Right them. Weren't you commissioned to attack us for a huge pay? Wrong. Wrong this time too. Wait. Whoever sent you, I will pay you twice the number they offered. Okay? What do you need? Just say it, because we can get everything. At the thought of getting hit again, Shin Gun-soo had gone pale and tried to strike a new deal. Yeah. I told you to guess who it was. Did I ask you for money? Did he learn Korean as a second language? Why couldn't he understand when being told clearly? He wasn't sure what level of Korean this guy knew, but he was sure that King Sejong would rise from his grave to curse the man. Tak! And another go piece hits him again. There was more magic behind it this time. Shin Gun-soo was twisting his body from the pain. Wah! My forehead. Shit! This is your last chance. Make one more mistake, and I will hit you with everything this time. Huh. Shin Gun-soo took a deep breath. Kang? Jin Hyuk. 3 words. Now you have the correct answer. Right. The one for whom you sent Park Ha-jin after with the order to kill. Don't think too stiffly and look at the situation calmly. They aren't here right now as they are attacking the tower, but the rankers in this guild are over level 50. So, if you kill me, all of them will come after you. The chain of revenge will never be broken. Blood brings blood, and revenge brings revenge. Unless one side stopped, the slaughter would continue. That was true. Blood and revenge were keywords that interfered with peaceful sleep. And Jin Hyuk smiled. Right. Let's just kill you and end it cleanly here. What? I will take my last revenge here, so make sure your side forgives me. What nonsense is that? Jin Hyuk took a handful of go pieces and shoved them into Shin Gun-soo's mouth. That's the end of listening to this shit. If the Black Crow Guild's men came to attack him, then he would just deal with them. It's not like he was afraid of them. Stop it now. Jin Hyuk said for the last time and swung the fist with all his might. His fist punched deeply into Shin Gun-soo's face, As it made contact, the sound of teeth clashing with go pieces echoed from within his mouth. Instant death. Now then. Yeah, the guy pretending to be dead. Wake up. I will count to 3. 1. Yes. I am all awake. Among the black suits in the hallway, a man answered. He was a man in his mid-20s. Judging from his lack of magic, he seemed to be a non-player. Was he Shin Gunsu's secretary then? Introduce yourself. You will be spared if you show me that you are useful. My name is Kim Hui Wong, and I'm 26 years old. I am in charge of overseeing all the work of the Black Crow Guild. I can speak 5 languages and studied computer science and accounting at Stanford. Anything can be left in my care. Oh, nice. Quite straightforward. Jin Hyuk nodded, looking satisfied. Age, experience, and specs. He thought this was enough. As you can see, things aren't going well here. The guild leader is dead, and the wounded are everywhere. Yes. So I'm going to entrust this guild to you. Yes. Yes? Kim Hee-wong's eyes widened as if they would explode. There is nothing to think about. Honestly, it would be a waste to destroy such a middle-class guild. Just handle it in moderation. It was a plan that he had thought up on the way here. Just barge into the boss's office and then take control of the guild from behind the scenes. This guy would serve the perfect role in that arrangement. As a secretary, he should know everything happening in the guild. But if I were to be the guild master, no one would follow me. Right. A non-player and former secretary, suddenly in the top seat, who would follow? You don't have to worry about those who oppose you. Will you take care of it yourself? Ki Hee-wong's face brightened. Considering the power that Jin Hyuk had shown, it would be simple. If Shin Gunsu was taken down so easily, then everyone else in the guild would be easy as well. But Jin Hyuk shook his head. No. Why would he take up such a messed up job? Did you hear everything? Jin Hyuk glanced at the ring on his hand. Right. No. To me? Elise, who was silent, became shocked. I have work to do. Since he was done clearing the ruins, he no longer needed to be stuck on level 1. Jin Hyuk smiled. Now was the time to really grow. The cell phones vibrated. It was a short order that told them to convene for some reason. Damn it. I am so busy. What is this? Don't even bother asking. I was in the middle of a raid. No matter how hard it is to ignore, isn't this getting worse and worse each day? Players belonging to the Black Crow Guild gathered around the building and grunted. It was quiet inside. There was shattered glass on the floor. The sight was different from normal, which made everyone confused. What is this? This is our building, right? A deep sense of discomfort rose in the players. They knew that something had clearly gone wrong. The guildmaster was dead. His body was crashed on the car outside the building. How did this happen? Gunsu Hyung. Then, who gave them the emergency call? Everyone's eyes turned to the other person in the room. It was the secretary, Kim Hee-wong. The anger from the players soared as the man stood around with an anxious look. One player even pulled out a weapon. A spear over 2 meters in length was immediately pulled out from the subspace inventory. The sharp weapon was extended towards Kim Hee-wong's neck. Do not miss a fucking thing and tell me what happened, right now. What happened was... Kim Hee-wong glanced to the side with a troubled look. His gaze was clearly aimed under the table. Who else was here? Just as everyone thought about that question. A white-haired girl who looked too young to be here appeared from under the tail. She had long, white hair, red eyes, and a strange atmosphere around her. The girl scratched her head in annoyance. She didn't even care about the weapons that had been pulled out. How could she look this carefree? This is absurd. Do you want me to think that a kid could have done this? The man with the spear clicked his tongue, and at that moment, Elise felt angry. Kid. It was then that a red-colored magic began to overflow into the room. The killing intent that had been heating up the room disappeared immediately and was replaced by a cold sensation that made their bodies feel like they would freeze. Oh my... What magic? She is a monster. The players had all gone stiff-faced, and no one even thought of running. Whoa, calm down. Didn't the president tell us to not kill if possible? Kim Hee-wong said in a panic. One still needed core resources to operate a guild. Jin Hyuk urged them to preserve the rankers as much as possible, but... What? Didn't you hear what they said to me? Elise had lost her reasoning. It was as if the accumulated stress had burst out alongside a large amount of magic. All of the windows in the building were smashed. With this, the chapter ends here. Please hit the like and subscribe button to know what Jin Hyuk will do in the future. I will be uploading soon.